Well, hello, my friends. Welcome again to another episode of Moral Panic with me, Christian Watson, your host, along with Nikoji, my co-host. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for all of you who are here, and for all of you who will be here in a few moments, and all of you who are watching the recording. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I know we started a little bit late, but I promise we will have an enriching show to make up for the time lost. So before we get into any topics, as always, Nikoji, how are you doing? And anything you'd like to say?
I'm doing fine. I think we have a lot of topics, so that's good. And as always, I want to encourage the viewers, if they have any topics, comments, and questions, they can put them in the chat. And, sometimes we start with planned topics, and then in the second hour or so, we end up going to the chat and seeing what the chat wants to talk about.
Absolutely. So, speaking of topics, why don't you lead us off today? Because as you know, I'm a little tired, but
Right.
we're gonna push through, and we're gonna make this a good show. So why don't you lead us off today with what you want to talk about first?
So one of the topics we had was the Argentinian administration of Milei, and I wanted to focus on how the mainstream media was kind of skeptical, might even be an understatement. There was a lot of doomerism in the media a year ago, and I think I even fell for some of it. And what we saw in today's, with hindsight 2020 or whatever you want to say, but Milei orchestrated a economic comeback. That is the consensus for those who are not denying the evolution of economics within that country of Argentina, where they were able to take control of their inflation. And U.S. had problems with inflation in the 70s and whatnot, but nothing like what Argentina went through. And it seems like a big victory. It seems like a huge victory for Milei. And so we're going to see this in the West, where people propose doomerism. The media is very skeptical. And then somehow that's the economics, the classical liberalism, whatever you want to call it, that stuff works. Principles work to parody, or to kind of put my Christian Watson spirit. Principles work when you have them in the right place. And it's almost like if you're an Argentinian supporter of Milei, you can just say, told you so. Like, you guys went through a year of hysteria and it worked. So we're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about it also from an American perspective, where we tried DOGE. It had a lot of faults, and maybe Elon isn't the best figure to help us get to where we would want to emulate some of Milei style governance.
I don't think he is. No.
Yeah. Maybe he was a bit of a bandwagoner, to say the least, or a manipulator. But we could talk about that, and we could talk about how can America achieve some of the prosperity that it desires, and maybe what things do we have going on that are in the wrong place, what things are maybe heading us in the right direction. So there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, you just laid open a bunch of different things. So let's actually begin with Milei first. And the sentence you said, the phrase you said, principles work. And a lot of people are now realizing principles work. So I think the most important thing to take from that statement is that the right principles work. And the right principles are going to be reflected within the observable world. And you're going to be able to actually detect them in the nature of things as well. They won't just be in the world, they'll be also of the world in a certain way. So economics is fundamentally just a study of human behavior, how human beings understand value in the monetary sense, and even otherwise too, because value is not just a monetary figure. It's also an incredibly sentimental figure as well. Right? Some people, in fact, I would even say that sentiment precedes money when it comes to the establishment of economic value for many people, right? If someone were to have, for example, a rare Pokemon collection that is worth $60,000 now, I'm just throwing out a number, but there are actually some Pokemon collections that are worth that much these days. But they have had it when they were a kid and their grandfather gave it to them. Well, their sentiment is going to precede the monetary value that they may gain if they were to sell that. right? The association with someone they hold dear, in many cases, will likely outrank their desire to get the monetary gain. Not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, it certainly does. So the same thing is true broadly in economics. A lot of people buy with their hearts rather than with their heads. This is what impulse shopping is, right? This is what a lot of consumer economics is involved with. This is what Black Friday is, right? People think, well, I'm getting this so much cheaper than I would at the or during any other day. And by the way, this is kind of dated because Black Friday is now mostly an online phenomenon. I'm old enough to remember when Black Friday was you go out at like 4 a.m. with your friends and family, and you wait at Costco's or Walmart for it to open. It opens and the floodgates come in. People rush in. People are trampling each other. They're trying to fight for the 50% discounted TV. That doesn't happen too much anymore. Although when it did happen, it was a very interesting study on herd mentality and human psychology. And I must even say it was rather entertaining, even though it was rather dreadful for a dreadful prospect for a civilized nation to be going through that kind of ritual. But I digress to a different subject. Anyway, but Black Friday is the manifestation of a sort of sentiment preceding money kind of thinking, because even though you may think you're spending less money on your products, when you rack it up, you're actually consuming more, which means you're spending more. High prices actually motivate you to spend less, but the lower prices motivate you to spend more with the illusion that you'll actually get more of a saving, when in all reality, you may actually spend more than you did normally.
And what you laid out is also the basis for a lot of the, like when we look at monetary policy, increase the rate, lower the rate. What you laid out also applies to that. Yeah. That's why the stock market goes up when Fed Chairman Powell says lower the rate. And
Powell just speaks, and now all of a sudden the markets go a certain direction.
Yeah, if they like what he says, yeah, exactly.
So all he has to do, if he's grumpy that day, the markets can crash. And I wish I was joking, but I'm not.
No, but it goes to your point that there is literally a herd mentality within the stock market.
Yes, sir. So more broadly, if economics is a study of human behavior and sentiment precedes monetary value, that means fundamentally economics has to be concerned at some level with sentiment, and by being concerned with sentiment, it's concerned with human psychology, and by being concerned with human psychology, it's also fundamentally concerned with with human nature. So economics is fundamentally a philosophical science as much as it is a monetary science. And actually, the Austrians, for all the disagreements people have with them, understood that it's a philosophical science, although they had a much less sentiment-rooted understanding of that science. They had a much more deductive-rooted understanding of that science. But I digress. And so Milei's victory has to be seen within that light. You have, for one of the, and by the way, I'm not really surprised he won, because if there's, and I was telling you this earlier, if there's any region in the world where a philosophical radical was going to become the head of state for a nation, it was absolutely going to be some country in South America. Look at the tumultuous political history of South America. Look at the Peronists. Look at the rise of the militias, FARC. Look at the
Brazil
rise
is interesting too.
What's that?
Brazil is interesting too, because a lot of what happens to our republic happens to Brazil as well.
Yep.
And you just see this theme across the Americas, across the two continents. I think that's the point, that a lot of our populism is similar. We have a more stable economy, but at the end of the day, the human behaviors are the same. So I think it goes to your point as well.
Yeah, and in fact, Brazil is even a very good case study for what I'm saying, because you have a country where you can get someone as traditional and hierarchical and haughty as Bolsonaro, then the next election get someone as socialist like Lula.
Yeah,
again,
just the
South America
swing.
is right. Yeah, South America is ripe for these kind of changes. For some reason, their politics goes everywhere. So we saw, for example, a Milei adjacent figure, at least in terms of economic rhetoric, in Pinochet in Chile. Pinochet's regime is very controversial because Pinochet was a ruthless dictator who arrested dissidents and killed people. But while he was doing all of that, the Chicago boys, Milton Friedman and a few others, actually went down to Chile and helped create were architects of a new economic order, which actually led to many decades of prosperity for Chile, which is being undermined right now, by the way, by the current Chilean leadership that is currently gearing the country towards socialism once again, using the passions of the youth there to bolster that attempt. But that's a different story for a different day. So South America, being this unique region for politics, is a place where someone like Javier Milei, a self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist, can become the president of a nation state. I don't think that can even happen in America.
No,
it's even ever happen.
I don't think it would in our future, in our lifetime.
For people who may not know what an anarcho-capitalist is, because we have an audience that is not necessarily seeped in online politics, which is why I'm actually so grateful, because I would rather talk to a general audience than one just seeped in online politics and into all the tribalism and stuff. An anarcho-capitalist is someone that believes that, like our anarchist, that the concentration of power in the government is immoral, number one. Number two, they believe that private organization is not only the moral alternative to government, it's also one of the best ways to sort human behavior and society. And that private organization manifests in the form of capitalism. Javier Milei is a self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist, not merely a someone who uses the term, but someone who's actually read the theory, someone who actually knows the theorists, someone who actually cites the theorists in theory in his interviews and his speeches, someone who's like intimately familiar with this kind of understanding, this kind of work. So you don't get that kind of thing in the West very often. Most of the time, and when I talk about the nature of power often, because I think it helps to understand how the nature of power influences and affects the kind of leaders we get, and the leaders, and how the leaders act while they are in those positions of power, while they're in those arenas. The norms of power make it so statesmen, politicians are generally geared towards what is practical, what is pragmatic, or what is, as the term that is used often says, realpolitik. What conforms to what is going to actually satisfy the political sensibilities and urges of my particular group or whatever. That is how most presidents and most statesmen, most prime ministers, no matter who they are, no matter what their ideology is, conform. That is how vast majority of them do. Well, the norms of power make it so because the norms of power are not served well when there is a serious consideration of the effects and proper limits of power that goes beyond mere cliches. So the moment I orient myself with power in a way where I say, okay, maybe power ought not be used in this way. Maybe there ought to be a limit on a term limit for people in office. Maybe there ought to be an ethics accountability. Maybe the citizenry ought to be armed and ought to be vigorously assertive and to defend itself from runaway authority. Hey, maybe we shouldn't be spying on all these people. Hey, maybe we shouldn't be trying to reorganize the economy to our own ends. Hey, maybe we shouldn't be opening up the borders so that anyone and everybody and their family can come in the name of compassion, a sort of moral principle that is unchecked by other moral principles and therefore is hollow because nothing exists in a vacuum. Hey, maybe power shouldn't be used to exalt certain kind of lifestyles over other kind of lifestyles. Hey, so on and so forth. When you begin thinking like this, you begin making the statesman nervous, the understatement nervous, because now you're going to limit what they can do.
Right.
Number one. Number two, you're also going to put them in a place where the more they do, the more higher the risk is that they could get in trouble with the people. They don't want that.
Right.
So the norms of power have the intent, have the interest in saying, let's keep it less philosophical, let's keep it less in depth, let's think about things on a very singular level, and let's just think about things in the status quo.
If I could use
go on.
Just to prove your point, an extreme example would be in Putin's Russia. Putin is very afraid of a populist rising, because he saw how the Soviet Union collapsed when he was stationed in Dresden. I mean, I might be getting some of the facts wrong, but there were riots in Dresden at the time, when he was a KGB officer. And he's been through, populist uprisings. So in today's world, they need to literally control the opposition. So like the Communist Party that survived, they need to literally infiltrate it and make sure that they have their candidates winning primaries, to use American terms, or they need to put them in jail. And this is why we see in that corner of the world very archaic style dictatorship or statism, to use one of those online libertarian words, but doesn't even need to be considered modern. But anyway, that's why the stronger the state is, the more problems it's going to have with the people, because the people will ultimately want more and more reform, and they'll want more. Some people could call it democratization, but they'll want more. Think American Revolution, like no taxation without representation. So they're going to want, to use American and French terms, they're going to want more republicanism or representationism, which I would just call republicanism. Yeah,
that's the proper word for it. We should the word democracy should be banished from the English language at this point, I think.
Yeah, it's being used a lot.
I really abhor that word so much you wouldn't even believe it.
Yeah.
I think that word is one of the most abused and misunderstood terms in all political lexicon in the West. So republicanism is a much more specific term. You can actually trace it back to a particular time. You can actually look at its theorist, and they have some continuity between them. You can go to the Italian Renaissance and look at the republicanism that was happening there. Then you can go ahead to the sort of English Reformation period, where you have people like Algren and Sidney, who came before Locke, and you have people like Locke, who really defined you can go to the American founding generation, who also gave a lot of teeth to it. Democracy doesn't have that kind of continuity, right? Democracy is scattershot, and so far as its examples exist in disparate parts of the world, but it doesn't have one single lineage you can trace back. You have to take a piece here, a piece there, and that's even complicated more so by the falsification of the historic record, due to the fact that things are called democracy that are not even quite democracy. So you have the challenge. You have, first of all, a challenge of trying to trace the genealogy of a scattershot ideology, number one. But then number two, the challenge of trying to ascertain what actually is that ideology when you exist in an era where political scientists and academics benefit from making things up and concocting things that aren't so. So republicanism does not suffer those same problems, which is why I'm very happy for the contributions of our founders. I'm very happy that we're able to still learn this stuff. But I think your point, though, about power and representation is absolutely true. Machiavelli said that there's a big danger. If you want to conquer a free people, you must destroy them, because you cannot conquer them. Because he says, and I quote, "They will remember their ancient liberty." If they have that memory, their ancient liberty, by the way.
Wow.
Now, some translations don't use the word ancient. The one I read does use the word ancient. The reason he's saying their ancient liberty is because it's a principle as old as time, as old as the existence of human beings. And if people are in tune with who they are as human beings, they're going to be able to then use that to inform how they should interact with the world and how systems in the world should interact with them. This is why the natural law theorist said self-love is the foundational principle of all future ethical behavior. Hate yourself. It's going to show in your behavior. It's going to make you less sentimental towards others. It's going to erode what Adam Smith would call your faculty of sympathy. And in eroding your sympathy, it's going to erode your humanity. And in eroding your humanity, it's going to erode your nature as a social animal. And eroding your nature as a social animal, it's going to make you a hostile towards society. It's in that entire range of thoughts are going to skew your thinking in terms of politics, in terms of other things as well. It's going to really mess your thinking up. You've got to be in a posture where even if you want to improve, and in this society, we've gotten it all mixed up, right?
Right.
this body positivity stuff that's been going on for the past few years, right?
Oh yeah.
Lizzo's stuff, right? Lizzo's movement. That we love ourselves, therefore we're going to eat as much as we want to eat. Well, I hate to be so blunt, but that's what a lot of it is. And I don't say this to demean anybody, by the way. I say this to someone himself who wants to be more fit, someone who used to be much bigger than he is right now. I say this to someone who's had a very up and down fitness journey.
Right. As many of us do.
A lot of it is habit. A lot of it most certainly is habit. But the whole idea behind body positivity is self-love should make you comfortable with being big, being unhealthy. Well, there's a difference between self-love and self-exaltation. Right? I can love myself, but loving myself does not mean I love the state I'm in, because yourself is bigger than any one moment. See, to bind yourself to one moment or one particular identity that revolves around some changeable characteristic, like your weight, is to reduce yourself to a single aspect, when there is more to your humanity than one thing. There's more to your humanity than one fleeting moment. There's more to your humanity than one habit. There's more to your humanity. Man is a creature comprised of a variety, a multitudinous variety of different principles, motives, impulses, actions, motivations, and desires. And the goal for the wise man is to use your reason to subordinate all of those different range of interests towards a singular pathway that is ethical and that is geared towards rightful conduct. Self-love enables you to do that. But self-exaltation reduces you, brings forth your worst parts, and casts yourself in light of your worst parts. Therefore, you can't. That's not love. That's essentially a form of self-hatred. Actually,
do you think
hatred to exalt your worst parts, pretend as if you can't have no room for improvement? The moment you, as a human being, stop improving, you no longer are living. Humans grow as long as we are alive. We improve as long as we are alive. We refine as long as we are alive. Now you have some more to say, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, I'm curious, because this topic that you brought up was actually mentioned on the Bill Maher show, which I occasionally watch like clips of. And I'm curious, some people use the concept of Overton window, and I wonder if the Overton window is shifting on the topic of body positivity. Like, they had good intentions, typical liberals. Their intention was to promote some sort of healthiness, and then it went too far. And now we're shifting it back. We're saying, you can be mindful, you can try to be XYZ, but at the same time, we're not going to pretend like obesity is good. We're not going to, if you want to accept body positivity for a normal range, we're all for that, but we're not going to accept that morbid obesity is not what it actually is.
Yeah, no.
Do you think is that what's going on? We're seeing cultural shifts.
So there's several things going on. I think most people who are not in digital echo chambers understand that morbid obesity is bad for you. Even most obese people understand. Intuitively, they understand this.
Right.
That's the. In fact, many people who have those kind of problems will say, "I eat because something tragic happened in my life, or I'm depressed and sad. Eating is my view." So a lot of folk who are even in that place understand they have some kind of illness they're grappling with.
Exactly.
The folks that don't are not willing to reckon with the truth at all. They're only willing to reckon with a image they have built of themselves in their minds. Well, the problem is false images can only last so long as they are shrouded in darkness. The moment one beam of light shines down upon that false image, and that's a metaphor. And so in the literal, that beam of light can be a perspective they may have not considered. It can be the harsh truth from a loving friend or family. It can be a piece of content they consume relating to their obesity. It can be advice from doctor. The moment that beam of light just shines down and hits that darkness, the false image becomes transparent. The brighter the light gets,
Mm-hmm.
the more the false image has to fade away and dissipate like a mist. And that's what's happening. We're seeing a mass dissipation of false images due to the light of truth brought down fiercely upon basic facts, upon what creates basic health.
Why do you think?
And
Yeah,
also, a lot of these body positivity influencers that are on TikTok and everything that were like 600 pounds and everything, many of them are dying or they have died.
right,
Some of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
It's a very unfortunate. It's sad. 29
Yeah.
years old, 28 years old, dying because of 600-pound overweight.
And
So
and we're also seeing the opposite too.
Yeah.
To kind of steelman your point, we're seeing the opposite too, where people. I think that two things could be true. There could be a need for some positivity and some self-love, and then at the same time, we're also critical of it taking it too far, because we see among people that are anorexic that they also have a potential of death because they're trying to perfect themselves. This culture of perfectionism that we could also blame on technology. I know we're going on some tangents, but we're making good points that this false image, a lot of it's enhanced by technology, and people get these disorders like anorexia, body dysmorphia, and people could die from the opposite extreme of undereating, where they mess up their GI tract and they end up in hospital because they can't digest properly. So on both ends, we're seeing extremes, and we're coming in from a place of cultural analysis that we probably agree, like I was saying before, that the Overton window went a little too far on the positivity because it wasn't explained well to the public, and maybe we're proposing a shift towards back to more reality, where we're not condoning a culture of excess, right?
Beautiful. Culture of excess is exactly the point, right? Because body positivity tries to moralize excess, tries to make it something to be proud of,
Right.
something to defend. You can't, when you moralize a vice, your whole moral universe becomes corrupted. You no longer have any foundation upon which to decide what is prudent, what is imprudent, what is right, what is wrong, because you've let poison into the water stream, so to speak. So I think a lot of people have distorted moral universes, and that leads them to obviously praising things that are deteriorative of the human condition, whereas they should not be. I wouldn't say shaming. I don't support body shaming, so to speak.
Right.
But I support sound, wise, and kind correction.
Accountability.
No amount of shaming is going to have the effect of a doctor who you've been seeing for years putting their hand on your shoulder and saying, if you don't stop eating like this, you're going to be gone in 2 years. I've heard from several people that very advice made them change their life.
Mm-hmm.
No amount of shaming or screaming or insults is going to be able to reduce the gravity of that single kind of advice. No amount.
Right.
So, again, that's the beam of truth I was talking about, the beam of light that hits down.
So to bring it back to DOGE, do you think that the Western liberal, which is something we like to focus on in our discussions, I've noticed the problems with Western liberalism, but do you think that the Western liberal does not, there's too much resistance to this idea that they need reform? What Milei did in Argentina, in Spanish, fuego, just get rid of this, get rid of that, that the Western liberal, if we were to propose abolition of certain agencies that we think are doing harm, that they would say, how dare you do that? That we must keep this institution that's regulating XYZ, without them realizing that they're actually contributing to poor economic policy. They're contributing to messes, unintended consequences. So it feels like the Western liberal has this false understanding of first principles within economics and things like that.
No, I agree with you. I think a few things going on there. First, you have normalcy bias, right? We've since our grandparents, I think, were born and alive several generations back. In America, we've always had some kind of centralized bureaucracy lording over the states like other people. Social Security was established in the mid 1930s. Right. My grandmother, when she was born in 1947, I think.
Mhm.
So from her lifetime to my mother's lifetime to my lifetime, the lifetime of all of our grandkids and has been marked by a ever imposing presence of bureaucracy that for a long time seemed necessary. And along with it came messages upholding that bureaucracy, that Social Security is a life net for the poor, that you should work very hard and retire and take your Social Security and you'll be A-okay, that kind of stuff. Right. The social safety net is so important. And these messages, ingrained with this ever-imposing presence, make it seem as if it's inevitable. The existence of these agencies is inevitable and necessary. But when the information streams open up and people begin to contend with this in a way that got the message out more than was possible in the days of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, so on and so forth, well, people's minds begin to change, or at least they begin to be exposed to a different perspective. Right? The Western progressives, I like to call them, they flail when that different perspective is offered, because their entire worldview is bound up in believing that having these institutions as an ever-present force in society is, number one, a force for good, and number two, a necessity to ensure the moral needs of the community are met. The entire ethos, if you want to understand progressivism, you have to understand one thing. The entire ethos of progressivism is that politics ought to be organic. That means in tune with life. That means in tune with the community. That means in tune with those they're governing. Now, for a moment, this sounds okay. Well, yeah, the politics should not be removed from the people, right? However, this is not in a way that is, say, the people versus the government. It's not in a way where the people are correcting the government and keeping them in check. No, it's where the government is maintaining the people as if it's their custodian, as if it has the ability to form character. That's the progressive believes that the government is a force for good and must be there to maintain the character and safety of the people. If it does not there, the people will suffer injustices and abuse inherently. That's what they believe. So, having said that, whenever you talk about, as DOGE did, looking into waste, fraud, and abuse in Social Security, or you talk about cutting USAID, right, which was funding a lot of things that were rather peculiar, but apparently the progressives believe they had a lot of good things too. Whenever these kind of conversations become conversations, the progressive does not just see you trying to critique a government program. They see you threatening the health of society, because they cannot conceive a society independent of a political order that takes care of it. It's a maternalism, a paternalism, you could even say. And I really think that's the source of a lot of the critiques on the left from DOGE. But DOGE was getting hit from a lot of places, both on the left and the right. It was getting hit from a lot of places. And by the way, in no small part due to DOGE's own sloppiness, their inability to execute entirely on message and on point, that hurt them. Right? When you have, for example, Elon Musk sending out emails to government employees, next thing you know, cabinet secretaries are saying, don't reply to this email, disregard. That is just a massive mismatch. It's just a massive discordance between what DOGE was supposed to be doing and what they did do. So there's a lot of different reasons as to why I think there's DOGE on a policy level didn't do as good as it possibly could have. However, I take the position that DOGE as a moral project did succeed. And what I mean is this. Since the progressive era, the American political system has been governed by a utilitarian calculus. A utilitarian calculus essentially said, we're going to maximize the outcomes for the average person by imposing a minimum wage, by imposing high taxation on the upper classes, by doing all this stuff, by imposing a welfare system to take care of them. We're going to basically just maximize. And we're going to minimize anything that goes against that. And to minimize that, we're going to create more laws. We're going to create more of a labyrinth, so to speak, for those we deem bad actors to get lost in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the utilitarian ethic. And the utilitarian ethic has bled into how we discuss our politics on all sides of the political spectrum. Whenever you hear a politician, a Republican politician or a Democrat one says, this policy will create new jobs, they're using a utilitarian calculus, first of all. And second of all, they're lying to you.
Yeah. Second of all, be very skeptical.
Yeah, you can't. You should be. Yeah, you shouldn't.
Read my lips. New jobs.
It's going to create new jobs. New jobs. In what industry? Where and when? How can you ensure there's going to be a significant labor force participation rate for those jobs to be filled? Can you ensure that the employers are not going to run out of money and they're going to be able to meet their bottom line or to employ the people? Right? Because what's happening this year, even happened to me a few times, is that you have these employers that have these job listings. They post them. You apply for them. Then after like you're 3 weeks into the application process, they come back to you and say, hey, the position has been closed due to problems with funding. It happens all the time, all across all kind of industries. So how is this bill going to create new jobs? It would have to literally corral a multitude of different factors and imprint a determined outcome for all those factors. And as we know, that is impossible. Society is a composition of millions upon millions of instantaneous impulses, actions, and desires melding into each other, not always in perfect unity, but in a way that actually creates some cohesion. And to suggest that one agent or 5 agents or 10 agents can then come in and corral those things is to suggest something that is not only impossible, it is fantastical. I would sooner believe that Gandalf's going to come to Earth and save us from, the reptilians, and I would believe that's possible. I'm serious. I would sooner believe in Gandalf and elves and all kind of crazy stuff than I would before I would believe that you can actually corral millions of instantaneous desires and actions, beliefs, motives, agendas, projects, and then force them to one end. So, Mr. Politician, what exactly do you mean this is going to create so many new jobs? Now, oftentimes, if you were to go on this field, the politician would just be like, or they would run away. I've had many cases in my life where I've made politicians that some of them actually have won major offices run away from me because I just ask questions. I'll say them right now. I don't have any allegiance to anybody. The current governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp.
Yeah.
When he was running in the primary a few years back, he was considered not even like an underdog candidate. He was not very popular. No one thought he was going to win. I thought that Casey Cagle, who was like the guy at all the polls, was going to win. So at one of the debates they had for the governor's Republican primary, Brian Kemp, after the debate was over, was just walking around with like his nephew or something, and he had no one around him, no press, no one. Like no one was interested. Which is funny because he ended up becoming governor of Georgia.
Yeah.
And I walked and asked him a general question about a very touchy social issue. And he said, well, I'm not going to play no catch-22 with you. And he immediately turned around and ran away.
Wait, what was the issue?
I'm not trying to catch 22. I was like, what, 19, 20 at the time? I'm not trying to catch 22 you. I'm just trying to ask a question.
What was the topic? He thought you were part of the opposition or something.
No. Okay. I've spilled beans, so I kind of have to say now. No. The topic was transgenderism, actually.
Oh, okay.
I asked him.
That's a weird response from him.
I asked him, well, what do you think of transgenders and all that kind of stuff? He said, well, I just think they're people. I'm not going to play no catch-22 with you. And he immediately turned around with that burly Southern accent and ran away. Like he got away from me as fast as he could.
Well, at least he did.
I've never seen someone run. I've never seen someone run that fast since I saw the movie Cars. Remember Lightning McQueen? Remember him? Remember him, right? Yeah. That's the last time I saw someone run that fast. Like he was like Lightning McQueen.
But at least he answered it. It seems like he answered it.
Well, he didn't want to engage deeper. I tried to push him on it a little bit. He didn't want to do that. But you
have to catch up to him. You have to sprint next to him next time.
Well, he probably has a nice security detail now that he's governor of Georgia. Much more high profile, right? He had to deal with the president.
I didn't know he had that thick of an accent.
Yeah. He still has that accent, most certainly. But anyway, point is, the politician that says X policy will create X amount of jobs is the politician who assumes more about the capabilities of power than is reasonable, number one. And number two is the politician whose mind and conscience is governed by the norms of power and not governed by any kind of prudential allegiance to the nature of economics and the nature of how jobs even are created. So you have confusions, deep confusions, right? But it's this utilitarianism. And I must say, by the way, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but many economists, even ones that people like amongst the Chicago School, or a lot of free market economists, they're consequentialists too. They're utilitarians too. They care more about outcomes than they do about principles. And I think that's an issue. I really think, because it's very easy to look at an outcome and say, this is why this happened, and da-da-da-da. But no one can guarantee an outcome for virtually anything. All we can do is estimate the probability of a certain outcome happening. And probability is never perfect. But probability always comes with a caveat. You can get shot right in your chest and still live and survive. I know people who have been. You can get shot in your kneecaps and not have to be paralyzed a day in your life. I know folks who have been. People, even getting shot in certain areas doesn't guarantee your demise or your incapacitation, right? So I don't think focusing solely on outcomes is wise. It annoys me, actually.
Right.
I get annoyed when people say, well, the leftism doesn't understand outcomes. It's all intentional. Will you just stop it, please? Because the outcome that you got, the outcome that they got, rather, they can easily explain it away through some defect or mishap in the system. To them, the outcome is not the needle that breaks the camel's back. Right. To them, the outcome is a vision. But to them, it's the means and the intention behind it that go towards achieving the outcome that actually matters.
It almost makes me wonder if, in some sort of psychological way, people who become accountants and they're very logical with numbers, that often we find a lot of like CPAs, accountants, and business people in conservatism. And then what you're saying is that on the left, on the other side, that there are less people, there might be some, but there are less people focused on the monetary outcome, focused on the economic, and they're completely playing different games. One person's playing a game of like numbers, and another person's playing a game of feelings.
Perfect.
So there's a lot of, then if that's what it is, then it's a lot.
Hold on. Not just feelings. It's a mistake to believe the left is solely emotional. And by the way, feelings are important.
The right definitely plays feelings too. Yeah.
I think the Ben Shapiro school of facts don't care about your feelings is one of the most dangerous phrases uttered in all of recent political discourse, because facts themselves are not truth. Facts are details that are supposed to get you towards the truth. But given the nature of facts, i.e. they are information that we have grounding for, but that are conveyed by human beings, it's very possible facts might change over time. And by the way, facts have changed over time.
So it's like what people say about statistics, that you could use them to lie and make stories.
Statistics are the propagandists' pride and joy. Propagandists love statistics. Because if you can argue,
it even has the word state in it.
If you can argue for, that's funny. I just caught that.
No, I think that's actually the origins of statistics. But yeah, anyway.
Oh, is it? Okay, I have to look into
it. It might be. Anyway.
if you can argue solely on the basis of a statistic, with nothing else put in, no first principles, no appeal to reason, just statistics, which has become a rather adept stylistic focus of a lot of debaters on the political left and right these days, you can convince someone to believe anything because you have no grounding. No grounding. You also have no perspective. Where's your perspective?
Yeah.
Literally, how it works is one group of scientists and observers and data people and statisticians come up with their own stats. Another studies their study, come up with their own stats. Eventually, if you have enough studies in a particular niche, you come up with what is called a meta-analysis, where a group of people will come up with and look at all the stats in a particular area, and they'll try to draw some general conclusions. But in any case, the statistics are almost always being contended with or further contextualized by future observations. This does not mean observation is not good. As someone, as you know, I'm someone that very much believes in induction. I believe in looking at the world and drawing conclusions from that. I don't think that getting caught up in the air and the abstract is going to help us at all. But induction must also be wisely oriented in order to achieve truthful outcomes. If induction is rooted solely in whatever a coarse-grained chart says, it's going to miss a lot of context and a lot of perspective, and most importantly, it's going to miss a lot of ability to bring about prescriptions.
Is what you're critiquing, is it rationalism?
Statistics are no. I mean, there are forms of rationalism that rely solely on plausibility, and they use statistics as a means to establish plausibility. Right. That exists. So, for example, Mr. Shapiro is a good example of this. So, if you go back and look at his old debates, he's debating these college kids. He would cite statistics at them.
Right.
They would go quiet and be like, and some may even say, "Oh, where'd you get that from?" He would say, where he got it from. The crowd applause. He won, right? No.
Yeah. No.
He used someone's ignorance as a tool of plausibility to convince the audience that he made some rhetorical win, when in all reality, the matter is left unsettled. Just because a stat says one thing or the other thing does not mean all further inquiry, all further questions should be stopped. So if this was the case, statisticians wouldn't be able to do their own job, which includes testing the methodologies and the data of other statisticians. Right?
Would you say, go ahead.
But so this is not to say that stats are useless. They're not useless. They are a good tool amidst a sea of other tools. Right. But if someone is just using stats alone and throwing them out, that's just terrible. You're missing perspective. You're not going to be able to establish any prescriptions because statistics are descriptive, not prescriptive. And if we actually want to see...
Actually, there are... I think it's becoming a new field, prescriptive statistics.
Yeah, that's good, but statistics generally are descriptive. Like they describe a set of things.
Yeah, in the traditionally, yeah.
Yes, and
I think we're moving towards people using it, like we were kind of talking about before. People could use it for a variety of purposes. I think,
and by the way,
they're trying to use it.
You have studies where academics will actually say at the end of it, after giving a bunch of stats, "Hey, here are our recommendations." So that exists. Right? Yeah, that exists, and that can be fine. But if there's a set of people that disagree with those statistics, they may say, "Hey, your methodology is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong." So during COVID, we had a lot of this, right?
Right.
There was complaints about the lack of randomized controlled trials in testing the vaccine.
Right.
And so, no matter the stats cited from the CDC and the NIH or all those other people, there were folks that were like, "There are no randomized controlled trials. I don't trust these statistics." And that was a point of contention that the medical community struggled to deal with. And that made a lot of people to be skeptical of the vaccine. So I just want us to move into a posture where statistics are not considered bulletproof.
Do you think
outcomes are considered, right? They should be a part of a integrated whole, a holistic approach to knowledge. They should be included in it, but they shouldn't be the only part of it.
And I wonder if it's related to how when people are learning persuasive writing, for instance, that there are three types of techniques: credos, egos, and pathos. And I wonder if what you're critiquing is this over-reliance on a statistical approach for credos, and there's weak ethos and there's weak pathos. Is that kind of what you're critiquing? That this Shapiro style of persuasion is very narrow-minded.
That's perfect. Yeah, That's exactly what it is. Yeah,
makes sense to me. Bobby made a good point to further your points, and he said if feelings are important, I don't have a rational reason, and that's what made me think. His comment actually made me think. Yeah, a lot of people, they use what some might consider a fallacy, the rationalization. It's in psychology and elsewhere, people could use rationalization, but sometimes there's a reason beyond something that needs to be rationalized. The reason is love of one's neighbor, love of family, community.
Yes.
Maybe some scientists could be like, oh, that's oxytocin, but from a human perspective, we have intuition, as Blue Streamer also says. So we have reasons that sometimes we don't even need to explain the rationality behind the reasons, because they are such core, like, to actually piggyback on a previous topic, like common sense pathos, you could call it, that is just so intuitively real that you don't even need to illustrate through a process of rationalization.
You are making a young philosopher smile right now. That should be. Say that again, please. I'm sorry. You just literally made my day. You saying that. Say that again, please.
So there's certain truths, intuitive, to piggyback on all of our conversations, intuitive feelings, that it's almost common sense, that you don't even need to explain it. It's the traditional meaning of common sense.
That is wonderful. Clap for yourself. You should clap for yourself. That's wonderful.
I'll pat myself on the back.
Yeah, that is literally.
We did it, chat. We did it. We came to some philosophical insights.
That
to those viewers still there. Yeah.
That is beautiful.
So we gotta thank Blue Streamer and Bobby as well for helping us get there.
Yes, you guys get it. You guys 100% get it. I can just go home now. Right? You guys 100% get it, because this is what a lot of the modern world forgets.
Mm-hmm.
The more we understand what you guys just all said perfectly, the better I think we can direct our path as human beings. The better our society is going to get. The better our thinking is going to get. And the more rightful our conduct is going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So I love hearing this. Again, this is not going to fly in certain arenas, right? The debate bros or those people, they're not going to want to hear all of that. They're going to want to see, cite the stat, bro. Cite the stat, right?
Yeah, what's your source?
Yeah, what's your source? Yeah, trust me, bro. All of that nonsense.
Yeah.
No. Look, some things, the source is your heart. The source is your humanity. The source is your intuition. The source is your common sense. The source is the testimony of the wisdom of the ages, going all the way back thousands of years to different civilizations that had no connection to each other except their universal humanity. That's the source. And that is enough to establish what approximation of truth is. So that's beautiful. Beautiful.
We reached some good insights. Yeah, we reached some good insights.
Right now. I'm inspired because this is what civic conservatism is, by the way, because I always talk about in my videos a civic conservative project. This is what it is. Part of what it is. Civic conservatism is when you blend a healthy approach of intuition and common sense with the habits and principles required to have a healthy and functioning civil society. And then you seek to translate those into the future and conserve what is there. You seek to conserve those things. That's a civic conservative project. And so this is what this is. And I'm very happy Hello there, Javier from New York City. Wow, that is a place that is under, I won't say under siege, but it's a place that's under a lot of scrutiny.
Do we want to apply some of our insights to actually New York City? A good test case.
If you want to, yeah, because we're both familiar with that area. I have been there. How many times have I been there?
So
over 20 times. Over 20 times.
How is the more like moderate leaning, the more conservative leaning, whatever you want to call it? How is that? Those factions? How are they losing the pathos and ethos debates in New York City? Why is it that this is going to be
Curtis Sila and all those people?
Maybe there's too many people split, but how is the Overton window, you could say, has gone very far left in New York City among the youth that turned out.
See, here's the thing. Going all the way back to Giuliani, NYC has never really had a quote-unquote conservative mayor. Right. They've had a Republican, like Giuliani was a Republican, right? Bloomberg was an independent. So they've had mayors whose affiliation was unorthodox. But in their ideology and how they govern, they were not necessarily quote-unquote conservative, right? A conservative in New York City is going to look very different than a conservative elsewhere. A conservative in New York City is probably going to talk much more about the economy than they are about social issues or cultural issues, things like that. So I think the ground has been ceded to the cultural vanguard of the left for a long time in New York City, even when it was under Republican leadership. I think you're simply seeing the downstream effects of an increasing national radicalization of leftward politics in the United States of America, right? Zohran Mamdani is essentially downstream of this national radicalization. It began, I would say, in 2016. Actually, it didn't begin there. It manifested more strongly there. Because in 2016, after Hillary Clinton basically illegitimately seized the Democratic nomination with help from people within the party, they didn't kick out the leftward activists. In fact, Bernie Sanders was given free rein to basically help write the Democratic Party platform. And he did. And from that point forward, if you look at the empirical record, it became increasingly more socialist and more far left. So you have that happening under the surface, bubbling up. Then you have the sort of wokeism of the past 5 years, which is a little bit after 2016, that has intensified various factions on the left, including various sort of factions on the far left, has emboldened them, has gotten their fundraising and their organizing up. In fact, I actually did a video talking about the coming mobocratic age. I did a video actually before this administration began, because I saw these organizing calls of left-wing groups with 30,000 people watching live, more than Tim Pool gets on it. Well, more than he used to get. Doesn't get that anymore. More than Tim Pool used to get on a great day. 30,000 people live, and there's Democratic politicians on there. There's activists, community activists, and they're setting up hundreds of chapters across the country. And they have people. The call was 2 hours. By the end of the first hour, they already had several chapters set up across the country. Like that. Within 2 hours, they set up hundreds of chapters, organizing on the ground. How do you think those No Kings protests happened? They didn't come out of a vacuum. They came because there was months of infrastructure laid down immediately after the November election. Right. So you've seen this intensification. And it's led to people like Mamdani being given not just a stranglehold, but the cultural currency needed to achieve victory in places like New York City, where the cultural fabric is already aligned towards them in the first place. So
we got a super chat from Bob.
Mr. Whittlefish says empirical information is like stats. Is very useful, but it's not enough. Too many cite statistics implicitly, assuming a utilitarian framework, as are the numbers themselves answer. Beautiful, correct, 100% correct. Thank you so much, Mr. Whittlefish. You're correct. And I think you actually said my point more eloquently than I did. If you assume a utilitarian framework and you cite the statistics, then baked into that citation is a belief that the statistic has the answer. It is the oracle. It is the orb that it will allow you to peer into the world and get the answer you're looking for. And that's not true. It's not true. As you guys know, I like induction. I like empirical stuff. I like observation, and stats are one form of that. Although I rather use my intuition than use my statistics, right? And if I ever do go back into online debating, I may have to change that, because many of you know I used to do a lot of online debating. I used to be on the Twitch debate circuit. I debated Destiny once. I don't think people know. Did you know that? Did you know that, Mr. Nikoji? Did you know that?
I don't really recall it. Was it on one of those?
It was on one of the panels. Yeah.
Okay. Then I do vaguely recall it.
It wasn't.
Jeez.
It wasn't 101. It wasn't 101. That would have been.
But you were still on the same. Yeah, I think I vaguely recall that.
Yeah, it was never 1-on-1. It was never 1-on-1. That would have been something else. That would have been quite crazy, actually. But I'm actually happy I never did that. I don't want the scrutiny. But if I ever do get back into debating, which I very well may, who knows?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to just say, "Oh, it's intuition." Although I'm definitely going to argue in a very different way than most people do.
I mean, I think that's why politicians, they have talking points with statistics, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of people in debate culture, they just do that. Like, Destiny has a stream and he's like typing up his Google Doc. They're just preparing themselves. Tragic. And then he gets roasted. What happens is he gets roasted by Norman Finkelstein, who I'm not a fan of, but he gets roasted by that man saying, like, you just read this on Wikipedia like yesterday or something. Like, you can't just try to neurochip info into your mind from Wikipedia and then pretend like you understand everything. So I think you're getting at truths, at problems with the Destiny style debating.
Knowledge accrued for the purpose of weaponization and not personal and moral refinement is knowledge that is wasted. It's knowledge that is wasted because it's a knowledge-bound moment. And moments don't last forever. Moments only last for a little bit. Then they go away. That's why they're moments, as opposed to eternities.
Right.
To be a debate bro is to be someone that constantly affixes yourself to whatever the moment calls for. Your thinking, your arguing, your entire posture with the world is driven entirely with what the moment calls for. It's new school sophism. In ancient Greece, there were the sophist school. They were actually a rather influential group of people. A lot of lawyers and rhetoricians in ancient Greece. A lot of lawyers and rhetoricians in ancient Greece, people who argued for fun, people who argued in court, were actually a member of the sophist school. And the sophist school was characterized by an unwillingness to have a set convicted position on a particular issue. They instead taught people how to play with words and how to argue. And when you're in a posture where you're playing with words, you're on a foundation that is like sand. It shifts everywhere you go, because words, the words can be stretched to the fullest possibilities of our imagination. And so if you play with words, the imagination is going to be your guide. Your imagination can get you lost very quickly because your imagination is not reflective of reality. But when you are grounded in moral conviction, not only do your words conform to what is not just true, but to what is actually substantive and provable, which means the words you use change. You're no longer trying to talk like a T.S. Eliot. You're no longer trying to talk like someone who is a poet imagining things. You can speak just like this and hit someone's heart with the truth and make them think about things all night just because you said something that was simple, but they hadn't said it in that way. When your words conform, your imagination also conforms. Because when your imagination conforms to that, now your imagination is geared towards the possibilities you can explore in terms of how to best use your words to chase substance, not to simply chase the moment, not to simply chase what you think is valuable, not to simply chase what is immediately useful as the utilitarian does. This is why character formation and moral formation are so dang important, because the moment the foundation changes and conforms, and you conform to it, is the moment your actions, thoughts, imaginations, everything follows, and you begin to reflect something that is much more better and much more human than these people who chase things that are temporary. It's so important. It's so important. So, if I were to get back involved in debating, and by the way, those of you who are listening on the chat, I'm okay with advice. You guys know this. You can tell me if you think I should get back into debating as well. I don't think I would approach it as a sport. I would approach it as a fact-finding, truth-finding, substance-filled, morally driven activity, where the first principles are at the forefront. I don't have the patience nor the willingness to debate just for clicks. I've done it before. Hasn't really helped much, has it?
Maybe it should be like a couple times a year. Keep it in moderation, as opposed to like, super active. Maybe it should be an occasional thing.
Yeah.
Because it would be good for growth, occasionally debating.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I'm considering it is good for growth. It is. But
if you ever need debate prep, we could do it. I could pretend that's what the politicians do, right? 15 minutes before.
Yeah, that's nice of you, Nikoji.
Yeah.
No, but it's okay. The thing is just this. Are people really?
I think people like drama. I think I might know your contention.
Yeah.
People like drama.
Well, yeah. So are they ready for someone who is as on fire for the truth as I am? Are they ready for someone who's sincere, who's not performing, who's grounded, moved by conviction? That's the question.
I mean, unfortunately, if you want the brutal truth, unfortunately, for a good chunk of people, no. I think people are very judgmental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they want someone to perform for them. So
and they have their own biases, and if you don't confirm their biases, they might become antagonistic. I think that's what typically happens. Not everyone. But Bobby had a comment recently.
Yes. You can try and be the sun. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
We'll see. Time will tell.
It's possible. I mean, it's possible. Here's also the thing. I don't seek it out. So if people want me to debate somebody, feel free to go tell that person and recommend them to me. Or recommend me to them. Right? And I'll happily, if the topic is sound and their motives are pure, my motives are pure, I'll go do it. Right? I have no problem doing that.
So maybe Dylan left an open door. I don't know.
Yeah, that one I'm not going to touch. I'm not going to touch him.
Yeah.
I'm not going to. I can't do it. But someone else might. Someone else. I did that. I was on his show for 3 hours.
Well, we could probably have is if they want like a. I hate to use terms like that, but a 2v2, like you in State of Daniel versus some other.
Oh dear, people. I'm not sure if Daniel wants to get involved. Nah, Yeah. Oh, does Daniel want to get involved? I could ask him,
Yeah.
but does Daniel want to get involved in that drama? Like, look at him, look at his channel, look at all he's achieving, look at his look at what he's talking about. Does he want to get
Right.
involved with like the debate bros that are just trying to tear people down? Like Daniel, unlike a lot of creators out there, Daniel is actually creating. He's building. He's
It's true.
building a smart kind of analysis of the news.
Yeah.
Debate bros don't like to build. By definition, they like to destroy.
That's
Well,
true.
they build for themselves. They destroy. They build by destroying, so to speak. They build their brands by destroying other people, right?
So
So
maybe one day I'll reach out to Dylan. No, I'm half joking. We'll see.
if you want to, we'll see what he says.
Yeah.
Blue Streamer says charity is an important purpose of this. I agree, and if my opponents lack charity, then all of a sudden, and I have charity.
Right.
Now our motives are different.
I mean, this is a good segue too to the nature
Yeah.
of politics topic. Right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Go on. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. What is it about politics that just fuels our tribalism rather than charity? It's just something. There's something very animalistic about our human nature.
Yeah. It's not politics. It's what happens when happens when a multitude of interests intersect with politics.
Mm-hmm.
If politics were in its pure form, it would be a constrained good, we would say. It would simply be the science of applying ethics to the processes of government, which are ordered by a kind of first principles moral order. However, politics has been corrupted and taken away from its pure form for many hundreds of years. So, in the actual form of politics we have, it is not the application of ethics to the procedure. It's not the application of ethics to the processes of government. It is rather the expansion of the processes of government at the expense of whoever is not in the driver's seat. Think about it.
Say one more time.
Politics, as it is today, is the expansion of the processes of government at the expense of whoever is not in the driver's seat.
Sure.
So, let me give you an example. If Group A wants lower taxes, and Group B perceives that call for lower taxes as a defense of the aristocracy. I was reading about the French Revolution earlier today, and this historian was saying that one of the reasons there was a lot of pain and anger in France was because of the three divisions of society, right? The third estate, the clergy, and the aristocracy, right? And he went on to explain in how the aristocracy actually started the revolution by putting forth in motion things that delegitimized the king. But the plebeians, the third estate, actually continued it because they were dissatisfied as well. Anyway, let's say there's a group that says, okay, no, cutting taxes gives succor to the rich. Okay. Well, Group B that wants to cut taxes is now seen as an apologist for some kind of injustice. So, whenever Group A gets into power, they're going to punish those. They're going to punish those who they believe are bringing forth that injustice by enacting policies that oppose them, by trying to hike the corporate tax rate, by trying to, I saw recently floated a 100% inheritance tax proposal on British radio was floated. This is the kind of things that happen. Then Group B will say, okay, well, what if we cut taxes? But we cut taxes in a way that spurs innovation and growth in areas that we think are important. How about we subsidize the family and give the family a tax credit so they can produce more babies? Okay. Now, Group A already has the perception, this is just hypothetical, that the family, as it's traditionally conceived, is not holistic enough to encompass all different kinds of families, right? And so the traditional family is a symbol of, in their view, is a symbol of injustice because it excludes everybody else. So now Group A has to respond to that. And here's the thing. Both, when either of them get to wield the sword, they're going to swing it in whatever direction they wish to accomplish their goals. So politics as it is today is the expansion of the processes of government, the expansion of the powers of government, and the execution thereof to the expense of whoever is not in the driver's seat. This is all Democrat versus Republican is. That's all. And by the way, we saw this tangibly a few years ago when Trump was running for president and he got prosecuted in all those different jurisdictions. This is a good example of that.
Right.
What's happening with John Bolton might be a counterexample of that, depending on what he did. Now, there's been allegations that Bolton violated the Espionage Act. We'll see how things go. We'll see exactly what the details are. Although I think for other reasons, John Bolton should definitely be in jail. He definitely, just other reasons. Maybe not for Espionage Act, but definitely for planning illegal coup d'états in other countries. I think that we can look at that first. I mean, there's a lot of reasons he should be in jail. But anyway, point is this: Group A and Group B are going to wield power to their own interests, so long as the power is in a state where it's not restrained or limited enough to not be used for those purposes. So that's my point. Politics as it is today is merely the expansion of the processes of government and execution thereof to the expense of whoever is not in the driver's seat. That's it. That's my view, at least.
Right.
Mr. Whittlefish says, drama exists whether you recognize it or not. That is true. Is it better to leverage the drama for good or leave it entirely to the bad? Why not turn a pure bad into a partial good, transmuting lead into gold? Yeah, I like alchemy too, by the way. Alchemy is nice. Alchemy, Nikoji?
Yeah, I mean, wasn't Newton fascinated by it during this pandemic?
Yes. Oh, yes, he was. Yes, he was. And a lot of his contemporaries thought he was odd for it, by the way.
Yeah. Maybe he just needed some sleep. Maybe he had some sleep problems. Kept him up.
See, the scientists of those days were far more fascinating than the scientists of our day.
They were the true mad scientists.
The Steven Pinker types, and not nothing against them, but they're just like, well, data set B says this. Data set X says this. Newton was like, okay, what are the fundamentals of how motion happens? Hey, what is the nature of matter? Can I literally use some kind of process or means to transmute matter into a substance of my choice? Okay, what about gold? Like, these are the questions, these earth-shattering questions that people like Newton raised that just made the process of scientific inquiry.
I have a great segue for us then.
Yeah.
What do you think of the comment that some view Machiavelli as a sort of social scientist? What are your thoughts on that? We're talking about the nature of politics.
As a social scientist. No, I mean, so I think Machiavelli's work has a lot of significance for the social sciences to the extent that they are actually useful for anything a person to use, which is debatable.
Right.
There's a lot of, I think the only social science worth actually studying is probably economics,
right,
and then maybe elements of psychology. Elements.
I should pull up. I say
elements because I see elements of psychology because the psychological field has been hijacked by a bunch of people that are far too speculative in how they think about things.
Can I share my screen for a second?
Oh, yeah, of course. Sure.
And I'm sorry, continue. I'll just do it.
No, please. Show me. I'm curious.
So yeah, I was half joking. Where's the button for this? Share screen, share. Wanted to do a specific tab. It's interesting etymology. Let me just. Sorry, give me 2 seconds.
You're fine. Take your time.
Just gonna pull it up in incognito instead. Even though it's just Google, it's just a quirkiness of Google, I guess. Let's see. How is this sharing? Is this sharing well?
Yep, I see it.
So, actually, the literal etymology of statistics can go back to the state, because they were trying to describe the science of the state.
Interesting. I didn't know this.
Yeah. So when we were describing descriptive statistics,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the origins of the modern field of statistics is literally related to politics.
Okay, so by the state, they meant the government, or did they simply mean the nation?
I think at the time they meant the government. Let me pull it up just for myself, because I got
the word
different.
Has been used several times throughout history. So
they were doing the science of data on the state or community.
Okay. So the state can mean a few things. It can mean the governing authority, it can mean the governing authority, which it oftentimes is used to mean in the modern day. Or it can simply mean the nation, the constitution of peoples in a particular area. Cicero and De Officiis on obligations actually uses the word state several times to describe the nation, the people, the community, the commonwealth, civitas, so to speak. So it makes sense to me that statistics would be the science of the state, because they measure society. They measure things in society.
Yeah, right? Do you see this? I started sharing a better source.
Yeah, 7070, science dealing with the data about the condition of a state or community.
So it's interesting, yeah. Because I remember hearing it in the lecture a while ago.
Noun of action to stand. Yeah. Interesting.
Broader meaning numerical data of any sort. But at one point, the sort that they were actually analyzing.
What's the root? What's the root word again? What's the root word?
Literally from Latin, from status. Position. I mean, these are multiple origins. Origins, but in the modern, German, it was, a kind of understanding of the state of affairs.
Interesting.
In the modern Latin statistics.
Interesting. I didn't know this.
Yeah, I only knew it vaguely, but it's interesting.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that goes to show why statistics and propaganda can easily coexist.
Yeah, because propaganda seeks to influence state of affairs, right? And statistics.
And if you're only sharing one statistic and you're cherry picking, that's what a lot of debate bros do. But they do the same thing that politicians do. That how much money do they spend on trying to highlight one statistic and disregard another?
Crap.
Oh boy, you got an interesting super chat from Bob.
Yeah, let me stretch before I answer this one.
He's doing a Joe Rogan stretch. It's the podcast stretch.
My non-existent muscles, guys. My non-existent muscles. Let me stop before I get clipped. I don't want to get clipped. All right. What do you think of the Groper to Grotius pipeline?
Interesting question.
Okay, I haven't actually explained this concept to anyone else yet, Bob. But I guess tonight is as good as time as any time to explain it. So I'm actually, if you're okay with it, Nikoji, I'm actually going to explain what he's talking about.
I mean, it might be within the realm of our nature of politics.
Yeah, I'm going to explain it in a second.
Yeah.
But I'm going to answer Bobby's question also, too, because they're both related. Didn't Christian meet the Graper King? I think that's the first I heard of the guy. I have met Nick twice. Met him twice. I think the first time I met him, I had a much longer interaction with him than I did the second time. The second time I met Fuentes, he was... Yes, I've met him. Yes. Guys, you don't realize something. I have been around for 6, going on 7 years, guys. I have met and I know people who, if I told you I knew them, your jaw would drop. Like, I have met a lot of people. But when you're in this industry, content creator industry, meeting people doesn't really mean that much.
Right.
Because meeting people generally is just seen as a networking kind of thing, or you go to an event and you see them. Like, I've met Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've been 2 feet away from her.
I was just going to say, it's the same as meeting a politician.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a full conversation with MTG. I never mention it because I'm like, it's MTG.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So I'll actually, and by the way, I actually have a video about this. I made it 3-4 years ago. It's called "My Encounter with a Graper." In fact, Nikoji, if you could find that when you get back, find that video and post it in the chat, that'd be nice, because I would like to look for it, but I want to kind of focus on the story. So, first time I met Fuentes was in 2020. Was in November of November of 2020, I think. Or a little bit after that, actually. Yep, November 2020. This is right after, I think, Trump had lost, and there was a massive stop the steal kind of move happening across the country. And there were rallies being held in so many different areas across the country to protest the election results. So there was actually a rally held by the Walkaway campaign at CNN's headquarters in Atlanta, titled CNN Sucks. And since I was in college at the time at a place not very far from Atlanta, I got up at 6 a.m., got in my little car, and I drove right up to the rally. And first I stopped and had dinner with a breakfast with a great friend who I met, that I haven't talked to in years. And by the way, this conversation is reminding me I need to go probably follow up with him. I actually met him in Students for Liberty, Nikoji.
Sorry, I stepped away. Who were you referencing?
So I'm talking about how I first, like, the conditions around I first met Fuentes. I'll kind of go back. So in 2020, remember when there was like the Stop the Steal rallies going on across the country?
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And so in Atlanta, which is, I didn't live that far from Atlanta at the time, there was a Stop the Steal rally going on. There's actually 2 rallies, one next to the Georgia State Capitol and one next to the CNN Center, which was where CNN was headquartered at the time. They're not headquartered there anymore. I think they moved their operations to like DC and New York City. Anyway, so me being the curious person I am, I said, you know what? I'm going to just drive on up and go see what all the hubbub is about. So I went to the rally in Atlanta. I actually got to meet Scott Preston, who was there actually. That's the first time I've actually met him. I met him twice too, and actually I had a full conversation with him. And
that's the guy that's currently on the panels.
What's that?
Scott. Oh, sorry, I'm confusing with someone else.
Yeah, Scott Pressler, the big,
tall
activist
gentleman.
Yeah,
he's currently active in politics.
Yeah, I won't even get into that one. Anyway. I mean, as I said, I've met a lot.
I actually don't know why that guy is famous. I don't actually know why he's famous.
You and me both, but I'll talk about him some other time.
Yeah, that's for another stream.
I'm already gonna get enough trouble for Fuentes. So let me do. Anyway, so I meet him, and I watched the CNN Sucks rally, and the people were screaming. And at the time, I actually met Dr. Karlin Borisenko there as well.
Oh, okay,
who
right.
has gotten a reputation these days for a lot of different reasons. I met her there as well. Met her in person. Actually, I have pictures of me there, actually. And so after that, I said, you know what? Let me head over to the Capitol because I want to go see the actual rally. Because hating on CNN is all good and fine, but I want to go see the actual rally. I want to go see the actual rally about the government. So I go over to the Capitol, park and everything. I walk over there. As I walk over there, I'm looking out in the distance. There's two stages. There's like the walkaway campaign stage, which is like a formal platform with the podium and the big and bleachers behind, and all the walkaway people are sitting up there. That nut job Ali Alexander, remember him? He was there. If you don't know him, then don't worry. You don't need to know him. He was there. I saw him briefly. I didn't talk much to him. I've always been turned off by him. So on the other side, though, there was like these gathering of like a bunch of youthful white guys. Well, let me stop. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. Thank you so much for watching. Know that I read your messages. I am inspired when I read them, and I am forever grateful for your support. So thank you, my friend, for watching. Thank you for your messages. Thank you for commenting. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I've appreciated you for all these years, and thank you for continuing to watch. And I hope you have a good rest of your shift. I finished mine earlier, so I know what it feels like to be in the coal mine, but I hope that you're able to find some fulfillment in it amidst all of that. So thank you so much for being here, my friend. Anyway, yes, he is terrible. And even 5 years ago, I remember I thought he was terrible. 5 years ago, all the information that came out about him did not come out. He's always been horrible in my mind. Anyway, so Ali's over there, all those people over there. But then on the other side, there is a group of like youthful white guys donning blue "Make America Great Again" hats, which is like the Groyper hat. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I walk over, me being the curious person that I am. As I'm walking over, I'm literally passing like NRA guys that have like big rifles on their shoulder. I'm literally passing self-proclaimed Proud Boys. I'm waving at them. See, I was so naive. I'm like, hi guys. Like I was just so cheerful, and they were nice to me too, and they're just waving too. We're just all waving at each other. I get over to where the Groypers are, and next thing you know, I hear this voice just screaming like, "We're gonna save America. We're sick of this country." It's coming out of a bullhorn. I'm like, what in the world? Is that who I think it is? So I literally walk into the crowd. I part the crowd. I'm literally in a crowd of a bunch of high schoolers. These are like 15, 14, 16-year-old kids donning "Make America Great Again" hats, shouting "America First." So I'm measling my way through the crowd. And I get to the edge of the crowd, like where I see Fuentes. I'm like a few feet away from him. And he's like just screaming into his my bullhorn. And I feel the energy. I feel the anger. I feel the rage. And I witnessed how spellbound everyone in that little group was towards him. They were just completely spellbound. And I was just standing right in the middle of the group. I had no problem. Some people would have been like, oh, let me just watch from afar. I had no problem like literally getting in the middle of the chaos and poking my head in and seeing what's going on here. That kind of curiosity has never left me either, by the way. I always enjoy being in the thick of it. So he's talking about the election, talking about how the country's going to hell. Like the same message he talked about today, just different, tuned to a different frequency. So after he's done screaming and the crowd disperses, they begin walking towards the main stage where he is demanding to speak. He says, we're going to march to that stage and we're going to tell them to let me speak. Let me speak. And they're like, Christ is king. Well, first of all, they didn't let him speak. Brandon Strzok and the walking people were not having any of that. They did not let him speak. So as he's walking towards the stage where his friend Ali is, I get next to him. And I'm walking right beside him. And I look at him. And I say, hey, Nick, is that you? He's like, hey. I'm like, hi, I'm Christian. He's like, "Oh, hey, I'm Nick Fuentes. Nice to meet you, man." Sticks his hand out. I stick my hand out. I shake his hand. He had one of the softest grips I've ever felt in a man's hand. I shouldn't say that. My grip isn't the strongest either, but his grip was so soft. I shake his hand. And by the way, as I'm doing this, there's a camera guy right in front of us for filming the whole thing. So for all I know, it might be somewhere out there waiting to bite me in my ass when I get popular or whatever. Why do they count Nick Fuentes? I was being cordial. I don't know. And I asked him how he is and everything. And after that, we kind of just go our separate ways. I didn't. Now, after I got done with him, though, I kind of stayed behind a little bit. Like I went to the back of the line and talked to some of the high schoolers who were so intent on following him. And I was asking them, so like, what do you think of interracial marriage? And when I asked that question, one of them, this guy's like 15 years old, his eyes go big. He's like, I don't know. And he runs away from me. I began realizing something. I'm like, okay. This is a movement built solely from passion, a movement that has no ability to defend its ideas except in reference to A, speculative notions, or B, their personality figure. But this personality figure is very much so hitting at something that is making these 15-year-old kids come out, like miss school. This is a school day. Miss school to go protest election fraud at the Georgia State Capitol on a Friday morning or whatever. Like, what the heck? What the heck? So something I knew at that point he was hitting a chord. He was hitting a chord. And from that point forward, I began studying his movement because I wanted to know what he was doing. So I've been keeping an eye on him for about 5 years now. And I figured him out, I think. I pretty much figured him out. So, all right, I've been neglected to chat. The second time, I'll talk about that later. Cameron asks, do you still keep up with Stephen Michael Davis, Kirk Wilcox, and or Yaron Brook? So thank you for asking, Cameron. Let's start with each of them. Stephen Michael Davis. Yes, I do text him still. I try to make sure he's doing okay. If he ever returns from his hiatus in a substantive way, I do plan to collab with him again. I consider him to be a friend, and I think I don't always agree with him. I think he has some very boneheaded foreign policy opinions. But I think he is someone who has integrity, and he is also someone who is rooted and grounded, even if I think he's wrong on some issues. Kirk Wilcox, I haven't heard anything about him or from him in years? I think he follows me on Twitter, but I don't know. I certainly haven't kept in contact with him. I think he has me on Twitter though, I guess. And Yaron Brook, I don't deal with Yaron Brook. I think Yaron Brook is a zealot. I think he is one of the most uncharitable people in the entire political discourse. I think he's one of the reasons why objectivism is never going to reach a bigger audience, because it has curmudgeons who are so inflexible that they refuse to even adjust temporarily to meet people where they are in their moral and philosophical development. So I really don't have much use for him. He's obviously doing very well with his show, I guess. I haven't watched him in years. I wish him well, right? But I have no use for him. I just really don't. I think when I was collaborating with him years ago, I was doing it because that was the orbit I knew. I knew that orbit. Okay, from 5 years ago, I've evolved immensely as a thinker and a person. If I were to talk to him today, it would be more like a debate than a talk. Not because I want to debate him, but because I just think we would clash so much that he wouldn't like me very much. So I'm sorry, I can't handle the Iran book. I can't do it. I won't do it. I'm not going to pretend to like him either. I can't do it. So, but hey, I can say this: he's authentic, right? When we say something nice about someone, he's authentic. So, yeah. Objectivists so often operate with prejudice. They certainly do. They certainly do. They certainly do. Second time I met Fuentes. So, if you guys want to know. So, in CPAC 2023, I believe. Yes, 23. Yep, 23. It was hosted in National Harbor, Maryland, which is like right outside of DC. And there was a counter rally being held across the street from CPAC, I think the night Trump spoke, at the Marriott. It was actually a Graper counter rally. Not the Marriott, the Marriott, I think. Now, funnily enough, the counter rally was happening across the hallway from a Chabad dinner. So Fuentes was holding his rally, his own CPAC rally, in the same location that a Jewish Chabad dinner was happening at the same time it was happening.
Just small correction, like Chabad.
Chabad, sorry. Yeah. See, thank you for correcting me. Chabad dinner. And so, there were like a few Orthodox Jews there. One of the Jewish guys I met there, his grandfather was an acolyte of Mir Kahana. Remember Mir Kahana, Nikoji?
Oh, yeah. Well, he was assassinated. Yeah.
His
party is banned. You could say that there is a Nick Fuentes style movement within Israel itself. As interesting as that sounds.
So the Jewish guy who I talked to, his grandfather was an acolyte of Kahana. He was in the JDL.
I was just about to say, there was a JDL. Yeah.
Yeah. His grandfather was involved in like beating up Nazis and like bombing, like all kind of crazy stuff. And so I got to learn this because I was asking him, well, how did Jews of past do it like Fuentes? And the guy just looked at me and smiled and said, my grandfather was a follower of Mir Kahana. And he had this big smile on his face. And I'm like, okay. And he began telling me some of the things his grandfather did. I'm like, I don't need to know all this, man. I don't want to be on a hit list, okay? Right? I don't want to. I didn't say that, but like still. It was some scary stuff. So, which is why, by the way, whenever I don't care what you're doing, if you're doing content, if you're doing politics, if you're going to alienate people, be wise in how you do so, because you never know what their connections are. You never know what their past is or who they know. You never know. I didn't even know the JDL was a thing still. Or rather, it had no. I didn't know that the JDL had like descendants of people that were in the JDL were still around and still were in touch with that legacy. I didn't know that. There are people that are the grandsons of people that were in the JDL that still remember all that and still have that same fire in their veins. So you don't know. And this, by the way, it's not just JDL. It's anywhere, right? If you were in Ireland, I would say, hey, be careful if you're trying to alienate some particular Irish people because they may have people in their family who were involved with the IRA, right? And they may have some very harsh opinions, right? This is why generally goodwill is a principle to follow in society. Goodwill, charitability, beneficence. These are things that kind of temper all that stuff. Anyway, so I wanted to go into the room where this was happening. And by the way, as I was there, Grapers were swarming the outside and outside of the door. And they were all in many of them were in masks, and they had bandanas on and all kind of stuff. They had glasses on. They were trying to conceal their identity. Some of them were in like old German fatigues, like Nazi coat fatigues. Like I saw this one blonde-haired guy in like a Nazi fatigue. I'm like, he had those old iron crosses on. I'm like, what the heck am I looking at right now? And he had the accent too. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I saw some very unsettling things there. But before the rally began, I was right next to the elevator, and the elevator opened. And out emerges Fuentes with two big, like, rotund guys as his bodyguard. And he walks past me, and I say, hey, Nick. He stops, looks at me, and says, oh, hey, how's it going? Turns, walks, keeps walking by. Apparently, he didn't remember me from those years ago, where he actually was more interactive. So those are the 2 times I met him. Again, rather unremarkable, I think. And I also think, by the way, meeting somebody in real life kind of deflates the artificial significance a lot of folks think they have due to their online persona. Like I have met Destiny. I've met Vosh in real life. I met a lot of people in real life. I'm not impressed, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not impressed. I'm just not. I wish I was, but I'm not impressed. The only... Yeah, I'm not impressed. I'm sorry. I've tried to be impressive. I'm just not impressed. I'm actually rather disappointed. We went from Hitchens and Sam Harris back when he was actually good, and Roger Scruton, Gore Vidal, William F. Buckley, all these giants, to freaking Vosh and Destiny. I'm sorry, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. I just can't be impressed.
Yeah.
Because I know history. I know what we had 60 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say that I made a X account for Nikoji. I don't know what we were talking about, but it got my brain thinking that maybe that would be useful.
Oh, that's awesome. Everyone should go and follow Nikoji's.
I just secured the handle Nikoji TV. So x.com/Nikoji TV.
Bobby says, welcome to getting old. Bobby says, welcome to getting older. You will watch those you respect grow old and die as you watch those you cannot respect. Yeah.
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 I agree.
I mean, it's funny. The same people who will quote Thomas Sowell in one breath will also praise Candace Owens in the next breath. I'm like, guys, please give me something to work with, please. Like, please give me something to work with. Like, it's driving me nuts. Like, come on, give me something. It drives me nuts. It drives me insane. I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. And by the way, so one of the few people, so Thomas Sowell is probably the last of his generation alive right now that I really think did an immeasurable service to the world. Just absolute brilliance. Victor Davis Hanson, you know of him, Nikoji?
No, sorry. Victor who?
Victor Davis Hanson. Have you heard of him before?
No, I don't think so. Nope.
Victor Davis Hanson is actually my favorite public intellectual out right now. He is, I think, one of the most educated minds in modern political conversation. But his education is betrayed by the fact that when he speaks, he sounds like someone you would meet on your afternoon walk. No pretension, no haughtiness, no I'm better than you. And what he says is so grounded. that you're almost led to agree with them, even if you don't like or don't agree with them. Yes.
What school of thought is he from?
Yeah, Victor. What's that?
What school of thought is he from?
He's generally conservative. I think he began as a historian, and he uses a lot of his historical knowledge to
Hoover Institute. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah. So I like Hansen. I think out of a lot of people, he is. And by the way, he's like ancient. He's like, what, 70 something. But out of a lot of people today, he is one of the few who I can actually sit down and say, okay, I want to hear what you have to say. You are brilliant. Victor Davis Hansen. So, yeah, he's great. And Blue Streamer says, I've only gotten to know Hansen last year, and me too. Well, I've known him for a while than a year, but I'm always impressed with him. I'm actually impressed. I'm impressed the old world media even entertains him, given how in-depth he is in his explanations. They generally don't like that. But when you have enough cultural currency, you can do whatever you want. And so he certainly does. He's been around since like the Stone Age. So I think he's someone that is deeply worth listening to. And that's very nice of you, Bobby. Thank you so much for saying this. I really appreciate it. No, yeah, I'm happy I started doing live streams again, because I think it's a very healthy way.
Right.
But we've almost been on for 2 hours, which is funny. I worked an 8-hour shift today.
Crazy.
I had no clue. When I got up out of bed this morning, I almost fell asleep. That's how tired I was. When I drove, I'm like, yeah, when I get home, I need to go to sleep immediately. I end up getting home. Now I'm just talking.
Yeah.
You will amaze yourself, my friends, with what you can do when you are determined. When you you will amaze yourself. You will amaze yourself, my friends. It's just, I amaze myself every day. Not tooting my horn. I'm just saying, I didn't think I could do it, because I think I'm just tired. Let me go sleep. No. Because when you're motivated by purpose, these things happen. It's like that. It's natural for you, right? It's natural for you. So, but yeah, VDH is a very positive and a very, very good person to study and to learn. So I'm sorry, Nikoji, I think I cut you off. So you have your Twitter account now, is that right?
Yeah. I don't use it much, but I figured I'd make an account with the Nikoji brand.
Well, that's all. Everyone should go and follow that account then. Everyone listening to me right now should go follow that account. If you're listening on the repeat, go follow that account. Definitely go follow that account. And by the way, all of you who are listening, who may be and there are a few of you who have not commented in, don't be shy. Let me know that you guys are listening. Talk to me. If you have questions for me and Nikoji, let us know. I enjoyed the question that Mr. Cameron asked a little bit ago. But yeah, I enjoy hearing from you guys. It's been so long. I mean, I think we're slowly beginning to awaken the audience to these lives too, by the way, because it had been, before I did this with you, Nikoji, it had been about a year or so since I did a live. My last live was with Stelios Panagiotou of Lotus. Nikoji, Blue Streamer asks, what is the full app for your Twitter account? There it is.
Yeah, yes, to get a good handle.
This is the one downside about him. Back in the day, VDH actually supported the Iraq War, which tragic. So I just, yeah. And I think right now he is more aligned with, I think he's much more pro-war in a lot of respects as well. So that's the one thing about him I don't particularly like. But his cultural commentary is indispensable. and it's absolutely indispensable. So
yeah, we have some topics definitely that I probably will save for next time because I don't want to burn it out in like the last 5 minutes of my energy here.
Right.
But I think we could definitely talk about the shift of the neocon from what used to be Republican Party to they found their home in the Democrats, and they're going to be politically alienated. As the Democrats go further and further, quote unquote, progressive. So we could talk about next time the politics of neocon, how it happened that Hillary Clinton, her policy just seemed so hawkish that Trump was able to provide a different style. Like Trump's very idiosyncratic, but he definitely wasn't the neocon shift. Actually, this is maybe one of the topics we were gonna maybe get into, like Lincoln Project, but we'll have to save it for another time. But this whole American neocon faction that flirts with Democrats and now is finding their home within the Democratic Party because it couldn't find a strong home within Trump's Republican Party. So stay tuned, guys, for future videos and future live streams, because we'll dive into those interesting topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap it up, I will say that neoconservatism, I'll just be very brief about this. I won't go too much in depth, but neoconservatism is, I think, a dying worldview.
Right.
In terms of its popular viability. In terms of its institutional prowess, unfortunately, it is still very much alive. I would say many of the great international bodies of the West are governed by a kind of neoconservative ethic. And in being governed by that ethic, their actions are oriented towards hawkishness as opposed to dovishness. So, just like wokeism, you don't need to have popular viability in order to have a stranglehold over the systems of power. Unfortunately, popular viability means little these days, since the mass veto is underformed. The mass veto is just what happens when people realize how to correct limits of power by using their just power as citizens. Well, it's underformed. It's been hijacked several times. So popular viability does not mean much these days when the power of the citizenry is isolated from the tangible decisions of those who occupy the halls of power. So that's one of the things we have to deal with, and we're reckoning with it still, by the way. A lot of people like to rail on about the post-war consensus, whatever. What I like to think about are the people that arose with this strategic view of the West as being an inherent antagonist in every respect of nations that posed a threat to the influence of particular countries in the West. And then packaging aggression against those countries in the name of universal values. That, to me, is a much more interesting story. And that's, by the way, how neoconservatism rose. That's a much more interesting story to me than the post-war consensus or whatever people like to obsess about these days. So, Anyway, Mr. Nikoji, I know we're entering our second hour right now, and we are getting close to closing. Right. So, before we go, would you like to say anything to people before we go?
Mostly 2 words. Stay pensive.
As always, my friends, hope all of you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next Sunday, 5 p.m. Have a nice day, my friends.
Take care.